Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit of news that dropped, 2 days ago, but is still, I think, very relevant for the discussion, which is kind of leaving an open-ended question here. Do you think, honestly, that movie theaters are going to be able to fully recover after everything with the virus has officially passed? I think that many of us believe that there are several theaters, maybe locally owned or even some major chains, that will be able to make do, that will be able to somehow survive in theory, or at least in some essence of its former self. But do we honestly believe, or does anyone honestly believe, that any major theater chain is going to be able to ever fully recover from the financial damage that has been done by this virus? And also, what are theaters going to start to do for the ones that do survive to try and basically prepare for a doomsday scenario to happen once again? Because I don't think any theater is ever going back to the way that it was. Even if they do somehow survive, it's going to be so very different from what it was previously, simply because the safety measures, the cleanliness measures, right, they're going to have to start to take much more seriously, because what if something like this happens again? What if this current strain somehow mutates and comes back even more powerful than it was before? What if a few years down the line there's something else? Now that we are even more hyper aware of things going on in the world, could it even be that just the regular everyday flu season that comes around has a major impact on industry, specifically theater chains or other places like it that have been so negatively impacted in a financial way? And so let's go ahead and dive into this article and talk just a little bit more about why I personally think, okay, you might think differently, that movie theaters will never be able to fully recover from this, and the long-term damage will not only change the movie industry forever, but I think will basically speed up the process of studios starting to release their work directly onto their own streaming services, charging a premium for instant access to newer releases, and that the movie theater as we know, and that the box office as we know, box office records, box office weekdays, all of that stuff that used to matter so much in the lifespan of a movie will be changed forever, to the point of it not even being that much of an impact. And I think looking to the fight between Universal and all of the major theater chains about releasing video on demand the same day, or at least very close to the same day of having a theatrical release, is a very big sign, and a clear-cut sign, that this end to the movie theaters as we know them is happening much sooner than was originally expected. The original range I gave was 10 years from now. I think it's going to be less than 5 years from now, and it could be even less, especially since that was assuming the theater chains would eventually recover, would be able to make some type of full recovery. That just seems very unlikely now at this point. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So Cinemark has delayed filing its quarterly earnings report, and this does not surprise anyone. This is, of course, following even AMC Entertainment, because they've had no financials to be able to really report. As far as the financial losses to every single industry, you think about how I used to, again, I mention this all the time, I used to work at a movie theater. I can think back to my AMC 20 where I was from, and I can think about how they, or question really, how is it that they can possibly hold when all of the people that used to work there can't work? All of the hourly employees are getting probably nothing from AMC at this point in time. And again, I don't blame AMC really for that, but of course my heart goes out to any of the hour employees who are getting screwed over in this entire process. It's once again one of the many reasons why I am on pretty much the side of against government shutdowns of industry and industry shutting down in general, even though I understand the severity of the issues, even though I understand all the various things that we can look to as far as who is going to be impacted by this virus and the amount of lives that potentially could have been saved by shutting things down. All I can think about are the innocent workers who have been so negatively impacted. And we can look to say, yeah, but Congress has tried to pass bills that put thousands of dollars into people's hands. And yet there are still so many people that have not seen a single check from the government. And also, it is not a valid, or rather, it is not a sustainable method to just churn out money. And guess what we have to do that? To print out more and more money, which devalues our currency. And really, long term, does it really help people out? I don't think so. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So Cinemark Holdings, this one comes from Deadline.com. Cinemark Holdings, the nation's third largest exhibitor, will delay reporting its financials for the quarter ended in March. It said in an SEC filing Friday that it plans to report by June 11th. Many people suspect that there are some theater chains, probably AMC, maybe even Regal, starting to open up certain theaters across the country sometime in June, with Cinemark already having said that July 1st is its really start date as far as wanting to get back going in the full force, or at least as close to full force as states will allow. The company said it was impossible to get the numbers and paperwork ready in time given the enormous disruption to its business caused by the CV pandemic. Among measures, this is quoting from them, among measures we have taken to endure the impact of the pandemic, we have furloughed 50% of our headquarter employees and reduce the work hours of the remaining employees due to a 50% pay reduction. So this is just talking about the headquarter employees. So this is not talking about those hourly employees that work at the theater, the people on the front lines, the people that are actually serving popcorn, cleaning up the theaters, making sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. Those people aren't working at all. And depending on the industry, they might not be getting any money from these companies, even though some of these companies are getting some sort of bailout from the federal government. And as I said, some of them may have been able to get some type of stimulus check from the government, but I bet there are still many more who have yet to see any money whatsoever for something that was not their fault and something that I think could have been handled much better and much more efficiently. Additionally, we have temporarily closed our corporate headquarters and issued a work-from-home policy for the safety of our employees and their families, following protective actions taken by state and local governments to control the spread of the pandemic. And that sounds great when you think about they're talking about the corporate employees, but notice how not a single thing is mentioned about those hourly employees who already get paid minimum wage, who already get paid so little for the work that they do, having no jobs to speak of at this point in time. I'm assuming many of them have gone on to either file for unemployment and receive unemployment pay, but again, that's always something that is up in the air. Who knows how much you're going to get from that? And I bet some of them, especially the ones that I know are hardworking, work their ass off type persons, have probably already gotten jobs at other locations that are still open. However, in all likelihood, it's a job that they definitely would not want to work in normal times. The above measures have in turn caused a delay in the preparation of our first quarter Form 10Q. We are working on a remote basis to complete and file the first quarter Form 10Q as expeditiously as possible under the circumstances. And I understand that this is definitely causing some issues for them, but I personally would much rather hear what they have to say about their employees and, again, when they're going to reopen. I know that there are several states now that are starting the process of reopening, and something tells me that they could probably start that process too. And even though it might not be the financial juggernaut that most normal day, everyday business before the pandemic was, at the very least, they could probably get some of those hour employees back to work, which for me, believing that work is a right that every human being has a right to, it's a part of our human dignity as persons, this is something that I would really like to see happen much sooner than later. People need to go back to work, reopen industry. The SEC is letting companies delay filing, although not many large players in media and entertainment have done it. A major exception is AMC Entertainment, which said last month it would delay both its proxy and its first quarter filings until June. The exhibition business, which is receiving zero revenue with all theaters shuttered, has been the hardest hit of any. And I think this is something that goes back to my original point, that I don't think theaters are ever going to fully recover because they are not getting a single dime from any of their industries. AMC, of course, we know at this point in time, has a on-demand service where just like with iTunes or Google Play, you can rent or buy movies at the standard rate. That all being said, I doubt that the money they're getting from that, saying they still split that with the studios around 70-30 when it comes to renting a movie, with 30% of that going to the service, 70% of that going to the studio, and about 90-10% split, only 10% going to the theater chain, 90% going to the studio when it comes to people purchasing on-demand movies. It's not going to be enough for them to be able to sustain their industry when you think about the millions upon millions of dollars they're losing in lost revenues. And as I said, many of these industries have received bailouts. Many of these industries are going to be able to somewhat stay afloat. But the long-term impact this is going to have on hourly employees. How many will come back? Will many hourly employees come back? Will they have found better work potentially? Will they want to come back to work at all? When will the bailouts to the people, to the workers, stop? This is one of the biggest problems when it comes to government handouts. Obviously, during a time like this, it's very important that people get those checks because it was something that was not their fault. It was something that was beyond their control as to why they're not working right now. However, without a timeline in place, without an understanding of, okay, this is how long this is going to last for in place, it makes people complacent and it makes people dependent. And all I can say is that any time that we have a populace that is dependent upon the government to survive, that is not a good society. That is a dangerous society to live in because we all know we can't trust government entities with anything. But getting back to that main point about the future of movie theaters, this is the reason why I think movie theaters are never going to be the same. They're losing millions upon millions of dollars. AMC was already in financial troubles before this crisis started. If you honestly think that every single movie theater is going to be able to reopen like it was before, you're fooling yourself. If you honestly think that every single theater is going to be able to implement new safety measures at a cost to them and still be able to operate when still so many theaters across the country have been under their operations because many more people have been watching films and television at home rather than go out to the theater, and how many more people will choose to stay home after this pandemic. I can tell you I've talked to several people who've already said, I have no plans to go to the theater for at least a few more months, even when theaters reopen, because I want to make sure things are safe. Now, do I think they're overreacting? I personally do. However, I can still respect their decision because, hey, you got to do what's right by you. You got to do what's best for you and your family. But because you've got a large portion of the populace that are deciding to do that, you have the movie theater industry losing and bleeding out money consistently over time. I don't think any level of bailout at the federal level, at the state level, is going to be able to sustain the amount of losses that we've seen in this industry. So do I think the movie theater is going to survive? No. Do I think that it's going to come back the same? Hell no. And that leaves us with a question. What are we going to be left with when all of this is said and done? What is the theater industry going to look like when everything is allowed to go back to the way that it was? And here's the big thing. Since that's not going to happen, because nothing's ever going to go back to exactly the way that it was, especially when it comes to these larger industries like the movie theater industry, what is it going to look like when the pandemic has passed? Let me know your thoughts about this and anything I talked about in that comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. And of course, the question of the day being, will movie theaters be able to survive, and what are they going to look like after all of this is over? Because we know they're never, ever going to be the same. Make sure you smash that like button if you like this video, and also hit that subscribe if you like this content as well. You are all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of your weekend. And as always, God bless. And now a huge shout out to my May Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Albertus Magnus, Animation Commentator, Brian P., Dion, Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Weeder Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Hunker Chunker Funker Monkey, Inflame Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, Kenneth Camiel, Lady T, Laura Story, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Out of Step with Reality, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, The DJD Show, and Tina B. Thank you all for being my Patreon members, and a shout out to my Subscribe Star peeps: John B., Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Darkstar 57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J. Rod the Beer Guru, Nebadon G. Adams, and ZK Man. And a special shout out to David Bobrizik and Edgardo Martinez. I'm going to leave that pause there just in case anyone decides to join for the month of May, because you can indeed join on Patreon or Subscribe Star at any time this month to be eligible for any of the perks. They include access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John, the Flick Pick of John Flickinger's fame, so make sure you go ahead and check that out at the $10 and up level. Also, if you Subscribe Star or Patreon at $5 or up, you have access to exclusive giveaways of 4K movies, digital films, and a bunch of other stuff in between as well. And if anything, you could at least give just anything that you really want to help support the channel, and it would really help me out a lot. It keeps the lights on, makes me able to continue to do this kind of stuff. So anything you possibly give, check out some more information in the description of the Patreon, Subscribe Star, and of course YouTube membership links as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.